Okay. And we'll go ahead and get started with some announcements. There will probably be a couple more people that trickle on in. I know that it's a busy evening. There's a couple of different meetings tonight. It feels like in the last about month and a half, every organization in Claremont is like, let's all meet every night because we have a lot to make up for. So I know that there's a lot of other activities going on right now around Claremont. So I'm sure we'll have a few more people popping in late, but we'll just get started with some announcements. So thank you everyone for tuning in to our May meeting for Active Claremont. Tonight we're going to be speaking with Aaron Fate. And Aaron, I have a question for you. This is a very trivial question. Is it Chief of Police Fate? Is it Chief Fate? Is it Police Chief Fate? What's the actual title?
So Chief Fate is usually the common the common thing, but I prefer Aaron.
Okay, so, if that's what you prefer, then that's what we'll give you. Okay, excellent.
Great.
I like it. So tonight we're talking with Aaron from the Claremont Police Department, current police chief, and he's going to fill us in on some of the CPD's latest activities. I know actually a couple of people have already commented about the activity down by the freeway and the hotels, which he'll fill us in on that. So that'll be good to listen to, and he'll have some more information for us as well. As a reminder to all the people in attendance here for us this evening, we will be having our monthly trash pickup. That's going to be taking place Saturday at 8 a.m. We'll be meeting in St. Luke's Church parking lot at the corner of, what is that? That's Indian Hill and Baseline. And we meet kind of in the northeast corner of the parking lot, but it's easy to find us because we're the only people there. Saturday at 8 a.m. So just look for the group of people. You don't need to bring anything. We have all the equipment. We'll have everything taken care of, paperwork. So if you're interested in beautifying the city and contributing and doing some volunteering, we'll be there Saturday, 8 a.m. and we'd love to have you. Another announcement, we will be having our May social on May 24th, which is this coming Tuesday. I'll be sending out an email tomorrow with some more information about that. It'll be basically very similar to the Christmas party that we had at Bill Bueller's house, same location, 6 to 9 again, same time. We'll have pizza, bring a side, bring a dessert, bring a beverage, and we'll have a good time. And we'll have another in-person event, which will be a lot of fun. So those are the things coming up right now. Of course, we'll have another speaker for next month, and Alexandra can chime in about that. I believe we're going to be, and Alexandra, at any time, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we're going to be having, I think that's Larkin Place and Jamboree. Is that, do I have that correct?
Yes, you're right. It'll be the CEO, Ron Bolding, with the Pilgrim Place, and then someone from Jamboree to talk about the proposed development on Harrison Avenue.
Yes, thank you very much. So that'll be a really good one. Obviously, that's a really popular topic right now, as it should be. It's up for discussion, and so that'll be next month's speaker. So stay tuned for more information on that. And finally, as a last reminder, if anybody here has dues outstanding, please complete that payment. You can reach out to any board member, and we will happily help you. We have our PO box. You can mail in a check. I will come pick up a check from you if you would like to renew your membership. If you're listening to this and you're not a member, Active Claremont's a wonderful organization. We promote volunteerism and community awareness with different community issues like health and safety with the police, small business issues, of course, when COVID was happening, and we had a lot of updates about that. So Active Claremont's a great organization. It's only $10 a year to join for an individual membership, and the organization is funded solely by dues and contributions of its members and the public. Yes, go ahead, Brian.
Only because you're talking about money and dues. Just to let you know, from the last meeting that I had, I put another $130 in the bank yesterday, actually. And Jackie, I think Jackie's on here, but I wanted to thank Jackie because her and her callers have really made a big effort to get the dues in. And we're getting down into the single digits now as far as people that haven't paid. So
excellent. That's great.
That's a good thing. And
thank you, Jackie.
But anyway, we put some more money in the bank. And the only other thing that I want to add, Joe, just so Aaron knows it, Aaron, just because you see 20 people on here right now, when we televise it, we record it, there are people that'll be through the week, and through the next couple of weeks that do watch it. So I don't want you to feel this is the only group available. It's true. It really hits it good. So
thanks for making me nervous, Brian. I was okay talking to just you guys, but
then just picture just us then.
By the way, I noticed Joe. I noticed Joe wanted to know whether they should call you Chief or what. Just to let you know, Colleen over in Laverne, I said, "Hey, Chief, how's things going?" She said, "Brian, we're still friends. You can call me Colleen." So anyway, that's how it is. And every time I see you, I'll call you Chief if we're in public, but Aaron if you're off to the side. Anyway, thank you, Joe.
Sure, no problem, Brian. Thanks for the update and the announcement. I have one other announcement that came through from a member that's in chat, Helen Brooks. Helen wanted everybody to know that if people are looking for volunteer opportunities, the Red Cross is available and they need help and they need volunteers. And you can also volunteer virtually. If you have any questions or are interested in learning more, you can either send me a message, or Helen is in the chat right now and you can send her a direct chat message as well. So if you want any more information on that, either reach out to myself or Helen and we'll get you some more information. Helen, thank you for bringing that up. Red Cross is a wonderful organization that can always use some added help. So without any further ado, what we're going to do is we're going to listen to the chief speak a little bit, give us some updates about CPD, and we will wrap things up after the presentation with a short Q&A, maybe about 10-15 minutes or so, and that'll be that. So Aaron, if you'd like, you can go ahead and take it away, and I'm going to go ahead and just give you the let's see. Oh, it looks like you should be able to share your screen if and when you want to. So whenever that comes up, you should be able to do that. If not, just let me know and I'll figure it out.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Joe. Well, good evening, everybody. I need to start off with an apology here because I was scheduled to come talk to the group several months ago. And after getting my booster shot about 3 weeks prior to, I got COVID, which was really more of a disappointment to me because I had gone so far and, working prior to vaccine availability and everything else, I'd gone so far. My family was extremely careful, and then it was like almost at the very end and I got it. So originally I thought, no problem, I can still do it. And as the days went by, my voice got worse and worse. You wouldn't have been able to understand anything that I was trying to say, and I wouldn't have been able to get it out. So apologies for missing that. I really don't like missing obligations. And thanks a lot to Joe and Alexandra for being so understanding and communicating with me during that entire time. So apologies and thank you for that. I'm really happy to be here tonight. So I want to give you just a little bit of background on me personally. Some of you know this already, so you can act like you're entertained if you want to, just to make me feel good. But for some people, it won't be new information. But when I was in high school, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do career-wise. I had some ideas, but nothing was really, speaking to me. And they had a program that allowed you to attend college classes while you were a senior in high school. And so I thought that was great. Citrus College was close by, and so I was going to attend some classes at Citrus. And the really great sort of side benefit was if you did that, you only had 4 school periods you got out at lunchtime. So it was, good news all around to get out of school at lunchtime, get to go to college while I'm still in high school. So, kind of the young guy on campus. And so when I went through the application process, a lot of the general ed stuff was taken up. So I looked through the elective courses and saw these criminal justice classes and said, hey, that sounds interesting. I'll sign up for one of those. So I did, and it was just really, really interesting to me. So one of my professors worked for the Monrovia Police Department at the time, and he said, you should go on a ride along one night. So I went there, and I remember there was a couple of the officers in there, and one of them said, oh, geez, is everybody in the class we're going to come in and go on ride-alongs? So it was like sort of imposing on them, and the professor said, no, not everybody, but Aaron's interested, so I want him to go on a ride-along. So I did, and that just really piqued my interest. And so I pursued it after that. And the person that swore me in as police chief was my original college professor from Citrus. So it was such a cool, closing of that big loop, and just a really neat experience all around. But for Claremont, when I got hired back in 1998, it was hard to get a job as a police officer. People were not hiring. The sheriff's department had a hiring freeze. LAPD had a hiring freeze. And so anytime there was a position that opened, you'd get these huge groups of people that would come and test. And so I took my test in the El Roble gym. There's 200 and something people there. And I remember looking around, people had their academy uniforms with their names on the back because they were paying to put themselves through the police academy. And I thought, I got no chance. These people are just going to do way better than I do. But, fate smiled on me. So I successfully went through the process and went to the academy, graduated, and I started out like most people do as a patrol officer. So driving around in a police car, handling calls for service. And then after that, I became a motorcycle officer, which is something I said I would never do in my law enforcement career. So it was interesting that I kind of changed that opinion. But when you see people like officers on motorcycles, they're just very impressive. Sort of the backbone of American law enforcement, those motor officers. And so I wanted to be a part of that. And the motorcycle academy was much more difficult than the regular academy that I went through. So I rode around town on a motorcycle for about 3-4 years, writing people tickets all the time. So you can imagine how popular that made me around town. So that was a good experience. And after I did that, I went into our Administrative Services Bureau. So the Administrative Services Bureau is sort of the clearinghouse of the PD. You've got all your responsibilities, but if there's something that nobody knows, oh geez, who should do this? Well, that's who does it. So you really get to do a lot of uncommon things. And it was neat because that's when I really started to get involved in the community itself and get to know a lot of the people that I still know now today, which I'm so fortunate for. And so in that bureau, we do hiring, recruiting, backgrounds, community outreach, training. I taught DARE when I was in there, which was just a great experience, going around and talking to 5th grade students about good decision making was really a lot of fun. And after I spent several years in there, while I was in there at the time, we called them agents, but it was, the 2-striper officers. So now we call them corporals. So at the time I got promoted to agent, later it was changed to corporal. But after I got promoted, I stayed in that bureau for a little while, and then I went into the detective bureau. And so the detective bureau was really another great experience. When I went in there at the time, the old detectives were moving out, so I could kind of pick what I wanted. And I remember telling the captain at the time, yeah, sir, I'll take the robberies and the assault crimes against people, all this stuff, all the like fun, exciting stuff. And he goes, no, I think you'd be really good at domestic violence and child abuse and sex crimes. And I went, oh gosh, that's a rough caseload. But what am I going to say? He's the captain telling me that this is a great idea. So I said, okay. And he said, I just think your personality fits in that group better. And so I did those investigations for several years, and it was actually a very fulfilling experience. You might not think that it would be, but when you get to help people that have experienced some of those it's like the most terrible things that a human can experience. And so when you get to provide some sort of a relief and guide them through the criminal justice process, it was just a really neat experience. So after my time in the detective bureau, I got promoted to sergeant, and as a sergeant, I went back out to patrol. So now I was out there making sure people were doing what they were supposed to be doing, managing the shifts, doing all that good stuff. And about the time we were running into some economic problems and looking for ways to cut costs and things like that, we used to have 2 captains here at the police department. So they got rid of one of those spots. And so the spot that they got rid of, that captain oversaw the records bureau, dispatch, and the jail, all the professional staff here at the PD. And so they needed somebody to do the work because, you know, the work still had to get done. So they went, Aaron, we're going to put you in that spot. And so I was the lucky person that got selected to take on that responsibility. And again, things that I learned there that you just normally wouldn't have learned in the course of your career path at the time where I was at. So that was a really great experience. After that, I went back to patrol and started filling in acting lieutenant roles. And then eventually I was promoted to lieutenant. So I was a lieutenant on patrol working as a watch commander. And then after that, I was promoted to captain. Spent about 5 years doing that. And then just recently, this last November, was selected as the police chief. And I'll tell you, it feels like it was a couple weeks ago, and it's already last November. So time is just flying by right now. So as you can imagine, with some of the stuff that's occurred nationwide over the course of the last couple of years, there's been some real challenges in the law enforcement community. And for us here in Claremont, one of our biggest challenges is staffing. And every issue that comes up goes back to staffing. It's somehow related to staffing. So a lot of times there's a tendency for people to try to, you know, hide that behind the curtain and not talk about it, you know, because we still have cops out on the street, you know, so we're still handling calls, we're still doing all that stuff. But I think it's really important that people know what it's like on the back end, how people are constantly working. They're constantly working overtime. They're getting burned out. You know, we have less people on shifts. We've got people covering other stuff. We have 0 special assignments. So when I talk to you about that Administrative Services Bureau and all that, there isn't any of that anymore because all of those people are working patrol right now to fill those gaps. So just for some perspective, between April of 2020 and this April of 2022, so in that 2-year span, we lost 44% of our sworn staff here at the police department. So those are all officer, you know, sworn cops, that many positions. And it was a combination of retirements. And I think some people chose to retire sooner than probably they had anticipated in their career path for various reasons. Some of them just being they just didn't want to do it anymore. We had people who completely left law enforcement, went into some other industries. And then we had people who left and went to work for other cities. So it was a combination of all those things. And luckily, through some really aggressive recruiting and hiring strategies, we've started to close that gap. So it takes a long time to get somebody out on the street as a functional police officer that goes out and does police work by themselves. And when you go through the hiring process, so just starting off at the very beginning, you know, you've got the application process. So people apply, applications get screened, they go to a physical agility test, they go to an oral interview, they take a written test. You've got this final group who you've rated through these various testing processes, and then you start a background investigation on them. And then the background investigation takes quite a while because it's very extensive. And then you get to the point where you can give them a conditional job offer. Then they have to pass psychological exams, medical exams, all that kind of other stuff. Then they go to a police academy, which is about 6 months long. Then if they successfully graduate that, they go into the field training program, which can be about another 6 months long. So you're looking at that entire time before somebody finally successfully completes the field training program and they're out on the street. So we typically do our shift changes in March and September. And so this last March, when we were doing shift change, I said to the other supervisors, we need to split up some of these new people, spread them out on some different shifts. And then I looked at the list and I said, we can't. They're all new, except for the couple experienced people that we're spreading out on the shifts. They're new. So and it's not necessarily age level, but our experience level is very low right now. And there's good and there's bad in that, because the bad is just that, experience gets built over time, dealing with different various situations. But the good is you've got that new energy, the people that really want to go out there and they want to provide public safety to the community. So that part is really good. And it also re-energizes some of the older people that have been here for a while. So that's good too. And what we've seen now recently is things are starting to stabilize. So the people that have wanted to go to other agencies, get out of the business completely, or retire have pretty much done that. And so now we've got our foundation where we can start building things back up. And we've got right now, there's one person in the police academy. There's 2 people in the field training officer program. There's 3 lateral officers in the background investigation process. And a lateral officer is somebody who works for another police agency and they're applying to come here. So what you do with that is you cut out that whole academy component, and they can, after a successful background, go straight into the field training program. So that saves you some time there. But there can be advantages and disadvantages of that. So what we try to do is a combination of the two, some laterals and some entry-level people that we send to the academy. And so 3 lateral officers in the background process right now, today, as we speak, and 6 entry-level people in the background process right now. And our goal is to send all 6 of those people to the next academy, which starts in July. And that's really uncommon to have 6 people for our agency and the size that we are, to have 6 people that you're sending to the academy. But as we've discovered, and part of it was my fault because I opened my big mouth, so we have these 4 candidates that we get out of this open recruitment selection process. And I say, I can't believe we got 4 people. I was expecting, or hoping for 2. And so then they go through the background process. Oh my gosh, they all 4 made it through the background process. I was thinking probably only 2 of them would make it. So then they go to the academy and they graduate, all 4 of them. And I say, oh my gosh, all 4 of them made it. I was thinking only 2 of them would make it. So then they go in the field training program and 2 of them make it. And I said, doggone it, you should have kept your mouth shut. But that happens. And so you have to calculate in that rate of people that are going to successfully be able to complete that program and function as police officers out on the street. And so it can be a little frustrating putting all that work into it. But what's really neat, and talking to colleagues from other cities who are really struggling finding people, we're getting some really quality applicants applying here in the city of Claremont. And a lot of them are doing it because they want to work for this organization. And they see the type of community that we serve, and they see the type of police work that we provide in the community, and they want to be a part of that. And I really think that's neat. In fact, we've got people, some of our newer people who've been here for a couple of years, and they're recommending to friends and family, hey, you should come work for Claremont. And for them, that can be kind of risky, because if they come here and go, boy, you were wrong, this place is terrible, well, then they have to live with that. So you really only get those kind of recommendations when things are really good. So that makes me feel good about kind of where we're at and where we're going here in the future. For our management level people, from right now to about 2024, everybody will be eligible to retire, with the exception of a couple new people that just got promoted. So that's a big deal. And what that means for us is we need to get people experienced and trained in places that they need to be experienced and trained in so that they can take over when that time comes, instead of just, you know, leaving and not having anybody ready to fill those roles. So that's really going to be one of our big goals over the course of the next few years, is to do that and to get people the experience and the training that they need. And the good news is we've got some really great candidates for those types of things that are currently working here right now. And that makes me really happy to know that. It keeps that, you know, the worry factor down, just knowing that we've got people that are capable of stepping up and doing that. So that's kind of the big staffing update. Some people ask about the station every once in a while, and I'll try to go through that. I probably took too much time on the front end with some of the other stuff, but people ask about the station, and you know, we had 2 failed police station bonds, and then the failed sales tax measure. And so you know, people talk about, oh geez, you need a new police station. Well, what we're trying to do now is, there was so much talk of, you know, these new police stations, that things just weren't really getting taken care of around here. And it was the, well, why fix that if we're going to get a new police station? You know, we don't want to spend any money on that. And so because of that, some of the maintenance just kind of got forgotten about, or wasn't done as well as it could have been. And so what we're doing right now is just trying to make it our place, you know, where it's livable and we can function and be in a professional environment. And so let's see here. This is where I'll try to share the screen here, Joe. It looked like looks like it says host disabled.
Okay.
But if it doesn't work, it's no big deal. I can just.
There you go. Now
Okay.
you can.
Oh, there it is. All right.
And at some point that should kick over.
All right, perfect. Let's see here. Okay.
There we go.
Hopefully
Yeah.
everybody can see that. So this first photo right here is right in the back door of the police department. So if you were in the back parking lot and you walked in the back door, you would come in this area right here. So these brown things on the left were evidence cabinets. And so this is where officers would store their evidence. They throw the keys in that one that has the hole in it, kind of down there at the bottom. Then the evidence tech comes through, cleans all the stuff out. So what we've done with this is one of the modular buildings that was donated by the school district, we fixed up and made it really nice. It's actually a really nice building. We put some nice modern evidence lockers in there, and that's where all the evidence gets processed out there now. So right around the corner from those lockers is this middle photo, which is the sergeant's office. And so that door in the background is kind of sort of like a Winchester mansion door. It doesn't go anywhere. You know, if you opened it, you'd see sort of the drywall and the framing on the other side. And then the picture on the right is where the sergeant would sit. And it's sort of, the picture makes it look a little bit bigger than it actually is. But it's just a small little like closet type space. So that's where the sergeant would be. So you could imagine, you know, if the sergeant needs more than one person to come in and talk to him, it was really uncomfortable because you're standing like right on top of each other. So on the other side, so that door that doesn't go anywhere actually would go into this room right here. And it goes sort of in that left drywall area. So on the other side of that would be the sergeant's office. So this was an equipment room. There were cabinets where all that dirt and disgusting tile is down there on the floor. And we moved all the equipment to another area inside the police station and downsized some of it so that we could use this room right here for what I'm about to show you. So this drywall area on the left over here, we just broke that out and created this. So the photo on the left is looking in that old sergeant's office. And the wall goes all the way over to that equipment room wall. And then the door on the right that you see in that left photo that goes out to the hallway is this middle one. So that's kind of looking in that door at all those report writing stations. And you can see there the desks that you can, you know, raise and lower. So if you want to stand up and type, you can do that. And then where those evidence lockers were is this right photo where there's a window. And so for those of you that have toured the police department, you probably know we have 2 windows in the building. There's one in the Administrative Services Bureau office, and there's one in the briefing room that kind of look outside, and that's it. So it was amazing adding this window in there where you're walking down the hallway and you can look through and see like a distance. It really, really adds a lot to the space. So these are kind of some side-by-sides right here. So those top photos, you know, there's the after and then the before kind of looking in there. And then the other one's looking in the sergeant's office with the new report writing area. And then you can see where the evidence thing is right there with the new windows. So across the hallway from that is the old report writing room. So this left-hand side one, that countertop that you can see there, that's where the computers were at, where people would do some typing. Our motor officer would sit at that desk that's kind of in the right back there. And then the photo on the right is just that stuff all taken out. So the drywall has been already prepped and ready to go there on the left. So we're ready to do some painting, and hopefully in the future, I'll be able to show you a more updated of what this actually is going to turn into. But that's going to be the new sergeant's office. And then the hallway outside of that report writing room that kind of leads back, that's the jail door there in the very back. So that has all been textured and ready for paint. So the nice thing about this is almost all the work has been done by city employees. So employees from City Yard will come on the weekend. There's one coming tomorrow and Saturday to do some of the drywall work. And then we've got people that work here that are doing the painting on days that they don't work. So it's really neat to see people take a vested interest in the place that they work at. And just that report writing room right there, the sort of sense of pride that it instilled in people was really neat to see. So one of the next things on my hit list is the women's locker room. If you've ever toured the police department, you'll know that it's just awful. And somebody made a comment to me, which I had never thought of, but they said when athletes are touring colleges, you know, to see where they want to go, one of the things they look at is the locker room facilities, because that demonstrates how they take care of their athletes and their players. And so I thought that was an interesting perspective. But we have one locker room inside the police department that's very small and inadequate, and then we've got the portable trailer that's outside in the back parking lot that has some facilities in it also. And so the one inside, there's lockers right across from the toilet, you know, so you can imagine, hey, we want you to work here, it's going to be great, you know, we appreciate your service, and then there's your locker right there by the toilet. It just doesn't send the kind of message that we want to send to new employees, or for that matter, people that have worked here for many years. And so that's next on the list. It's been great because we've got nothing but support from everybody that we've talked to about it. And we actually have a local architect who's coming in to give us some ideas just out of the kindness of their heart. So it's been really neat to see the support, and we hope to have some really nice professional locker room facilities for our female employees coming up here in the very near future. So on to some more, you know, what problem areas are happening in town that need addressing. And the one I'll talk about first is traffic enforcement. And I'm sure that everybody that's participating right now, and those that will listen later on, thanks Brian for that, will agree that traffic has gotten crazy. And it's not just a Claremont issue, it's all over the place. Everywhere I drive, go down to Orange County. I was going to somewhere out in LA the other day, and the skid marks and the big intersections, the ones down by Disneyland, there was one like in every one of those giant intersections. And so people are just driving poorly right now, is the best way to put it. And so again, we go back to staffing. You know, we had our motor officer was working patrol, and so they could do traffic enforcement when they weren't handling calls, but it's really not as effective as having somebody on a motorcycle out there just doing traffic enforcement. And so when we were finally able, we were just able to put him back on a motorcycle about 4 weeks ago or so. And he's been spending time in each area that we get complaints in and writing tickets. And just the impact of that has been huge. And so far the feedback has been really good. There's a couple people who were saying you need to do more traffic enforcement that ended up getting tickets, you know, so that's never good for them. But then they know that we're out there doing what they ask us to do. So that's going to be a priority over the course of the near future here also. And as our staffing improves, we've already identified people that we're going to get out there specifically doing traffic enforcement. In fact, we have a reserve officer here who's been a reserve for, gosh, well over 20 years. And he had an interest in doing it. And so we're training him to ride a motorcycle right now. And then he's going to go to the motorcycle academy as a volunteer, as a reserve officer. And so he'll be out there conducting traffic enforcement too. So we're getting there. It's just things never go as fast as we would hope for, but at least there is some hope on the horizon. So that's always good. And then the other thing, we sort of touched on it a little bit already, but the criminal activity near the motels down at the 10 freeway in Indian Hill, and over the midst of COVID, and that's just gotten out of control. So that's on our hit list also. And somebody mentioned we just did a special enforcement detail down there recently. So even with some of the staffing struggles that we have, when we posted up that sign up sheet for that, it was full within about 5 minutes. And some of the people whose names went on it, they weren't even working, so somebody was making phone calls going, hey, there's this hotel special enforcement detail. Do you want me to put your name on it? And signing them up. So we got a really good mix of officers who participated in that. And it's always, the risk goes up when you do things like that because of some of the stuff that you're encountering in that short period of time with all of those officers. And two of the big ones were, one was a loaded concealed handgun that somebody had on him, and the other one was an unserialized handgun, which most people refer to as ghost guns, with a prohibited extended magazine and some other stuff. And we're even doing some more follow-up on some potential crimes that one of those guns was used in another city. So it was a really successful detail. We're already planning the next several. So that's going to be kind of an ongoing thing that we do. And we just need to send a message that we're not going to tolerate that type of activity here in Claremont. And so those have been successful so far. And as far as some of the activity that goes on down there, specifically prostitution, there's been a lot of work by a lot of people that volunteer their time. Some of them are participating here in this meeting tonight. I won't call them out by name just in case they don't want me to embarrass them, but a lot of work is going into this. And the police commission had an ad hoc committee that did a big presentation that's going to go to city council here in the next little bit with some recommendations. And there's still a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes with code enforcement efforts and meetings with various people that are involved. There was a human trafficking symposium that was held at the Hughes Center this last Monday, which was very well attended. Lots of really good information. And the success of that leads me to think that probably we may need to do another one of those just for people who didn't get to participate. And so there's a lot of efforts going on there. And it's not just Claremont. We've done a lot of work with the Pomona Police Department. They're really open to joint efforts because this impacts both of our communities. And the relationships we built there have been really successful also. So with that, since we're approaching, I think I talked for a little bit too long, so sorry about that.
No, you're okay. It's good. It's good info. It's all good. Don't worry about it.
Okay. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody might have. And
Okay. Excellent. Well, we'll kind of give some people. It looks like we already have one question in the chat. I try to usually get the ball rolling, give some people time to drum some things up. So chat, now's the time. If you're out there and you have a question related to Claremont Police or anything that the chief went over, you can go ahead and just type your comment into chat. I'll go ahead and read it off, and I'm going to read every question that comes up, and I'll read it how it's written, and Aaron can give the answer that he feels is best. So I'm going to start with a question. I know you had mentioned regarding staffing, and you had talked about having 4 candidates when you were only expecting 2, and it ended up that only 2 kind of made it through. Of the candidates that kind of make it, halfway or 60 or 70% of the way through, but don't quite make it to being a fully sworn in patrol officer on their own, what's do you feel is the biggest reason that they, I don't know, is the term is drop out or why do they withdraw?
So there's a real big kind of a variety of reasons that go into it. And some of it can be as simple as they just can't write police reports. They can't mentally collect this information and put it down in a way that they can testify later on in court, to hold somebody accountable for committing crimes. And so it can be things like that to geography, not knowing where they're at, not knowing where they're going, not being able to find their way around town. And then it can extend to sort of some dishonesty issues where things happen and you go, something's wrong here. And then sometimes those lead to even more concerning things where you go, okay, nope, this person doesn't belong here. And sometimes people say, I don't think I can do this. They get hired, they go through the academy, they're in field training, and it really, and I've talked to several people that have experienced that, and it takes a lot of courage to be able to admit that maybe this isn't the right fit for me. And there's some people who, they'll say, I think I'm going to get hurt, or I'm going to get somebody else hurt because I don't know that I'd be able to act. And once that happens, there's really no going back after that. Because if somebody admits that and you try to, push them into staying or convince them, no, it's okay, you can do it, and then something happens to that person, that's just not a risk that we can take.
Yeah, and that's all understandable. I mean, obviously, the role that law enforcement and a police officer plays, it's one of these types of occupations where you never know what you're going to get into that day. I mean, you have a rough idea, but you don't know who you're going to come across. You don't know what situations you're going to be put in. Obviously, some situations are more in line with helping citizens, helping this person with a disabled vehicle. And sometimes it's, I have to go chase this big bad guy down and I have to tackle him, and I hope I can do that okay. So it's not just, there's a couple of things that I need to concentrate on, and that's in the scope of my work. I'm a painter and all I do is paint. That's just it. It seems like it's a profession that has a lot of different tributaries and offshoots that are everyday things that that could happen. So it definitely makes sense. And you're right, it does take a lot of someone to say, hey, you know what, I got 30, 40, 50% of the way through this. I did a lot of training with the academy, and you know what, it's just not for me, and that's okay. And it's good that they identified that, because last thing you want is someone who, like you said, is not fully committed to what they're doing. And especially in a line of work such as law enforcement for a small community, it helps when you're committed to doing it. So that makes sense. So it looks like we have a couple of questions coming through from chat, and it looks like from Robin. Have you identified who has been doing donuts in the intersections late at night? And kind of off of that, it looks like another person chimed in. Donut skid marks the center of Foothill and Indian Hill today. So have you been able to identify people, and maybe to branch off that, those types of sideshow activities and these types of street racing late at night, how do you police that?
So it's difficult because you have to be in the right place at the right time, and it's not one person or one group. It's all kinds of people. In fact, one person that we identified lived in the neighborhood that the complaints were coming from, and so the guy's doing it in his own neighborhood. But we've had incidents where the parking structure down on First Street, all of a sudden there's 30 cars up in the top, the little modified race cars, and so our officers go over there and are able to stop a few of them on the way out, and they can do inspections on illegal modifications that they've got done to these cars. In some cases they get impounded, which is really expensive for them to fix. But if you're lucky enough to catch somebody doing donuts in an intersection, one of the strategies that has been used is to charge them with felony vandalism.
Oh, skid marks.
Yeah, because the dollar amount is low enough and it costs money to repair that, make it look nice again. And that has had more of an impact than some of the vehicle code related stuff. So sometimes we just have to get creative and figure out what's working, best. Yeah. But that is a challenge. It's even when we have people give us, this occurs on typically these days during these times, and we have people sit up there, they may or may not see anybody, or the activity doesn't occur.
Right. Yeah, I'd imagine it's kind of like fishing.
Yeah, it is.
Some days it hits and some days it doesn't, and you can't make the fish come. You can't make the criminals do crimes. You can just be there if they do them. So yeah, I could see how that could be kind of a complicated thing to take care of.
Yeah, there's a lot of luck involved in it.
Yeah, I could imagine so. So a couple more questions coming in from chat from Edna. Have you identified other illegal marijuana growers in Claremont? How serious is this problem and what has been done? Thank you.
So I'd say, Edna, it's not typically a serious problem. When we discover it, it's usually from observant neighbors. And usually what they see is nobody's really coming and going from this house. The air conditioner's on all the time. The windows are all covered up. You can smell marijuana, standing out on the sidewalk. That's a big clue right there.
Yeah.
But it happens, but it's not some sort of epidemic, where it occurs all the time. It's not really that common, and particularly because they take a lot of work to set up, and they can be dangerous too, because in some cases they bypass all of the Edison lines and then run their own sort of really questionable electricity through the place. And in fact, one of them up in northern Clermont caught on fire, which is how we found out about it. But they had rented the place, they put a deposit down, never met the person renting the place face to face. They did it all using fake IDs, from a distance, and they absolutely destroyed this person's house. One, it caught on fire, but when the fire department goes in there and they hit the whole place with their hose, forget it. You got to redo the whole interior of your house. So,
yeah. Wow. Okay. Another question coming in. How do you handle complaints against police officers?
So complaints get investigated through our complaint process, and there's if you go to the police department website, there's a big complaint description that has all kinds of different information on that in there. And our website can really use some work. So hopefully you don't judge too harshly if you go there and look at it, but that's one of the things that is on the to-do list, is to kind of bring that up to a more modern, easier to navigate website. But basically, in a nutshell, if somebody files a complaint, it gets assigned to an investigator. So the investigator interviews all the involved parties, identifies any policies that may have been violated, conduct the investigation, conclude it. It goes to the captain. The captain reviews it. If everything looks like it's in order, it goes to the police review ad hoc committee, which is up to 3 members of the police commission that review the investigation and decide if it was thoroughly investigated or not. And then at the very conclusion, then it goes to me for the final overview.
Interesting. Okay. And another question from Alexander here. Does Claremont PD have partnerships with Pomona PD or other neighboring cities?
We do. One of the big partnerships we have is the Foothill Special Enforcement Team. It's like a SWAT team. because we're just not big enough to accommodate something like that ourselves, and neither are these other agencies. So that one is us, Monrovia, Glendora, and Laverne. And so they're constantly going to training together. Our canine officer, who has Drew, the bloodhound, he trains with other agencies that also have bloodhound dogs. Our detective bureau is constantly working with detectives from other agencies. Our patrol people work together with other agencies. In fact, sometimes we cover each other's cities during big events, or you know, if Pomona's investigating a murder and they've got all these calls backing up, we'll go help them out to try to handle some of that stuff. So really the answer to that is yes, absolutely. And for us, it's really important, just because things are going to come up that we don't have enough people to handle. And so we need those relationships, and we need to be able to, you know, rely on our neighbors.
And that makes sense, especially with things like, you know, SWAT team or other things like that, where obviously you want to be prepared for every situation, and obviously SWAT team is probably not routinely needed in Claremont, but it kind of makes sense because they probably don't need a SWAT team routinely in Monrovia or Glendora either. So why not pool resources, pool manpower, and you know, make it so that you don't have to each have your own individual things. That's great. And it's funny, I remember that you were talking about that from the city council meeting that we had not too long ago, where the police department was asking for new equipment, and it was fancy equipment. And I don't know the terminology for it, but you were talking about all the, you know, things that you guys use and need. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and it was great to hear that we work cooperatively with agencies around us. Kind of really quick off that. So as a kid, I kind of grew up with this like idea of like police jurisdiction, and like if you are like, you know, traveling down Bonita and you just cross Pomona, but a Claremont PD officer sees you do something wrong, are they able to do something about it, or is it one of these things where it's like, no, that happened in Pomona, not my problem?
Yeah, so for something like that, let's say it's a traffic violation. I can enforce traffic violations anywhere in the state of California.
Oh, okay, good to know.
Yeah, so if I was up in San Francisco and I saw somebody do something, I wanted to stop them and write them a ticket, I could. You just have to cite them to whatever their local court is that sees those things. Okay. And then, you know, I'd have to fly back up there to testify at traffic court. But so that wouldn't be common. It's not something you would do. If it's a crime that occurs, typically you want the agency that has jurisdiction over that to investigate that, because they're going to have to do all the follow-up. So so let's just say I witnessed a really terrible assault that occurred in the city of Pomona. Well, I would handle just that first little part as well as I could, even if it meant arresting the suspect and everything else. But then Pomona would come in and they would take over that investigation.
So you could still intervene in a time of an emergency situation. It's not like, well, I work for Claremont, so sorry, I can't. There's a rule that prohibits me from placing handcuffs upon you. Right. You could still intervene if needed. Okay, that's good to know. Good to know.
And there's not, you know, it's common. It kind of makes me chuckle sometimes when I see it in the movie where it's like, this is, you know,
that's kind of where
jurisdiction.
Like,
you know,
could it really work that way?
I mean, so that doesn't usually happen.
Okay, good to know. So. Good to know. So we have a question from Laura. What can be done about the transient who frequents Fordham in Virginia? He was most recently in a standoff at the old Primerica building on Indian Hill. Us families are concerned for our safety.
So what I would say, Laura, is when you see that person, you should call us specifically if they're in that area. We've been arresting, without you saying who it is, I'm almost positive I know who it is. We've been arresting that person for years.
Wow.
Which is, you know, doesn't give you a whole lot of confidence, but we've been arresting him for a long time. He's got a restraining order against him that prevents him from being close to that area, which is why if he is there, you should call. I would say that just about everybody that works for the police department knows who that is, and they know that they're not supposed to be there. So we just need to stay vigilant on that and address anything when it comes up where there's any sort of illegal activity occurring.
I suppose we should follow all the signs that we see. If you see something, say something. kind of goes along the line with that. And Sue has another good question for us. Aaron, can you tell us more about the work you're doing with Tri-City Mental Health?
Yeah, so one of the things that is really great, probably one of the best programs that we've done here for a really long time, is our PAC team. And some of you may have heard about it at some different public meetings, but it's the Psychiatric Assessment and Care Team. And they're here, right here at the police department. Their office is in one of the other modular buildings that the school district donated to us. And they assist on mental health related calls. And so the idea is to try to free up some police resources and have them take care of it. And there was sort of a, either or type of a discussion at first. And it really, I don't think that it needs to be that way, because I've seen it work really well, sort of integrated together. Mm-hmm. So there's a call that could be potentially dangerous. PAC, they're so good. They learned how to talk on the radio. They use police jargon codes now too. So they can hear what's going on, and when they hear something that they think may apply to them, they just automatically say, okay, we're on our way there too. And sometimes, an officer will get there and go, okay, we don't need to do this. The PAC team can handle it, and they just kind of hand it off to them. And there's other times where the situation needs to be stabilized a little bit, and then PAC can step in. And even in some cases where somebody is arrested and they're in our jail here, and the PAC team members will come right into the jail and talk to them there. So it's just been really, really good to have that so far.
And how often, roughly, would you say, I guess maybe per day or per week or however you want to put it, how often does the PAC team go out and interact on a call? Is it something that's common?
Yeah, it's common. And when they're not doing that, they've got people to follow up with in the city. And even during the course of, because they work day shift hours right now. So during the course of either the nighttime or the days that they don't work, officers will collect things that they think PAC can be beneficial for, and they'll leave those for them, and then they'll follow up on those. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it's, hey, we went to this house, this family's dealing with this right now. Can you give them a call and see if there's any resources that will be useful for them? Mm-hmm. And so that's been really good too. It's just been an all around really great program.
Have you seen any type of pattern, or is there any location within Claremont, or is there any pattern to the calls that you see the PAC team kind of going to routinely or over and over?
Yeah, and sometimes it would be things that we'd be going to anyway, but we've also experienced where we may be the initial people on the call, but then once PAC gets involved, they would communicate with PAC directly, and then we're sort of taken out of it. PAC is kind of doing the follow-up with them, and helping them out. But one of the really neat things, and it's great for just the general mental health of the officers, is thinking that there's some sort of resolution at the end of some of those calls, because some of them it's just you go there, you try to do the best you can, but then you got to go to the next one, and there's really no closure. There's no long-term solution. And to be able to provide them with a resource that can then help them out on a continual basis is really a good result.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, a couple more questions coming in here. This one's from John Scott. Regarding the earlier partnership query, do adjacent cities advise CPD as to issues such as spikes in catalytic converter theft status, graffiti, and gang activity? So is there kind of like a information sharing that goes on amongst cities?
Yeah, there is. And probably one of the big ones is information bulletins. So we produce them here, other agencies produce them, and it covers some of those exact things mentioned in that question. And a lot of times, let's say catalytic converter thefts, you'll get a bulletin from another agency that says, oh yeah, we stopped Aaron Fade in this truck and he had a Sawzall and 3 catalytic converters. And you look and go, hey, that's the guy we're looking for too, right? Yeah. So yes, there is that information sharing, and it's really beneficial, because the criminal element, they don't recognize boundaries mostly. You know, they
You don't
just go
say.
yeah. They just go to where the target-rich environments may be, and so to be able to share that information is really good. And sometimes, you know, when you think of a county boundary, because we're right on the edge of San
Right.
Bernardino County, you know, okay, so yeah, we share with LA County, but do we share with, you know, you probably don't share with counties or across county lines, and we really do. Upland helps us out with stuff. Montclair helps us out with stuff. We use the shooting range at Montclair's police department occasionally, and so we've got great working relationships with them also. The chiefs from, you know, this end of the county area meet with the chiefs from the San Bernardino and Riverside County areas. So there's a lot of information sharing and communication that goes
Good.
on there.
Good. Okay, Sandy has a question. Oh, I'm sorry. Jackie has a question here. How many sworn officers are women in Claremont PD?
So I'd have to count, Jackie, but I want to say 7 right now. And that doesn't count people that are currently in backgrounds. And that's really sort of I mean, this should have been a focus anyway. But when I talk about the women's locker room and that accommodation, we're really on track to have more female officers than we've ever had, you know, in the history of the department. So it's really important. We want to attract qualified candidates to work here in the city, and so to be able to provide adequate services for them is very important. And we've had some really great people that have made the choice to come here and work for Claremont.
Good. Okay. And Sandy has a question. She says, I don't understand about how the police determine where the police are placed. Do you ever think about putting the police in the village that people can access? I don't know if she means the police station or in terms of patrolling, but perhaps you can just speak on how police are positioned throughout the city.
Sure. So I'll try to cover both of those, thinking maybe it's like a substation question too, but the city is divided for us. The city is divided into 4 areas, and the dividing lines are Indian Hill and Foothill. So there's 2, we call them beats. So there's 2 beats on the north side of Foothill, and there's 2 on the south side of Foothill. And so it goes, you know, 1 is down in the southwest corner, 2 is down in the southeast corner, 3 is in the northwest corner, and then 4 is in the northeast corner. And so typically what happens is the north and south beats will cross back and forth over between 3 and 4. And the southern beats will cross back and forth between 1 and 2. And that's typically your backing officer. So if you stop somebody, you're the beat 1 car, and you stop somebody and you need a backing officer, typically beat 2 is going to come over and help you out. Sometimes that doesn't work out, you know, and somebody has to come from the north down, or, you know, south has to go up to the north, or sometimes every officer in the city is in one area. And so that's kind of how the placement starts out, is that. So you're patrolling your beat. That's your area right there. So criminal activity that occurs there, calls for service, you're going to those. Traffic hotspots, you're working those in your beat. And then those rotate. Every couple of weeks, you're getting assigned to a new beat. Typically, you go, you know, north to south in the various beats. And then we also look at places where there's a pattern of criminal activity. So if we know that something's likely to occur, or it would be good to have officers during certain times in certain places, then we can do that also. And then the village part. So there's pros and cons to any sort of decentralization when it comes to substation stuff. And one, we don't want officers sitting in buildings anywhere. They need to be out. They should be out in their neighborhoods, providing public safety services. So typically we wouldn't want them in a building like that. And Claremont is just, the size of Claremont doesn't necessarily justify having some sort of a substation. So if that answers that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Okay, so here's a good one from Helen. Is there any chance that Gascon will be changing his philosophy about the catch and release sort of attitude about arrests? If arrests made are not being prosecuted 90.4% of time, statistic given at the Human Trafficking Symposium, the bad guys are not being held accountable for their behavior. I will say this is something that I routinely hear. Obviously, there's the whole recall George Gascon effort. And I know that that is something that's kind of been on the radar for a lot of areas for some time now. As a chief in a small community, what's your take?
So when this topic comes up, I like to at least try to point out that I'm the public servant. So I'm here to serve you, the group here. And you guys make the decision on who you want to elect into these offices. And then I provide the public service the best I possibly can, even though it may present some challenges. And I'll tell you, just that first part, is there a chance? The answer is yes. And now, will it? How successful will it be? I don't know. But is there a chance that he'll change his philosophy? Philosophy, probably not, but at least the way that he goes about the way that things actually get done. And the reason that I know that is because LA County Chiefs group gets together. They just had our board had a meeting with him recently, and he's really started to change on some of the things that he was doing before, and he's more open to listening to some of the issues that we're dealing with in our communities. And I've experienced the same thing in a meeting that I had with them. That he's open to see, okay, this is what's occurring, and what can we do to try to solve some of these problems. And I don't think you could find many people that would say that they wouldn't support some sort of a diversion program or some alternative method to our standard criminal justice model that we've been using for so long. The problem is it needs to be there. It has to be in place. You know, you can't just say we're going to divert without having somewhere to divert.
Yeah.
You know, so we'll see what happens, but I'm cautiously optimistic as we go into the future here.
Good. That was a maybe a enlightening or maybe slightly refreshing to hear that there could be something on the horizon for that. We don't have any new questions in chat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of make this a last call for anybody that has any questions. For the people, we've had a little bit of an increase in attendance since we kind of got things going. So very quickly, I'm going to recap some of the events that we have going on. This will kind of be a 2-minute warning. So if there's anybody that has any remaining questions for the chief, who has been excellent in answering all of these questions and spending so much time with us. So if anybody has any questions, go ahead, put those in the chat, have a couple more minutes. I just want to remind everybody again, trash pickup this Saturday, 8 a.m., St. Luke's Church, corner of Indian Hill and Baseline. All the equipment will be there. We'll have everything. All you need to do is just bring a can-do attitude, and we will get you set up to pick up some trash. And we also have our May Social this Tuesday, the 24th, at Bill Bueller's house. If you need more information on that, please reach out to any member of the board, and we'll get you hooked up with some more information. And it looks like Sue is raising a hand over there.
Yeah, because someone sent a message to me that should have gone to you.
Oh, okay.
And do you want me to read it to you?
Yeah, why not? Go ahead.
Okay. What are you doing exactly about the crime at the hotels in southern Claremont? I hope the residents are receiving mental health. Are there officers working the Oak Park neighborhood?
So
repeat that, Aaron?
No, I think I got it, Sue. Thank you. I hope we covered. So okay, so let me just repeat what I got as the question here, because there's a question about that. So it was basically what's being done about the crimes down at the hotels. Are they getting offered mental health services down there? And then are there officers working in the Oak Park neighborhood? And so I hope we sort of covered some of the hotel stuff during the talk, but I'll just recap that we're actually arranging special detail enforcement down there. So it's groups of officers specifically targeting that area. and making arrests for any criminal activity that they see. Again, just to recap, we got 2 handguns out of the last 10 arrests within about 7 hours. So that's going to continue down in that area. And then the Oak Park neighborhood, I'm not sure if there was something specific about that, but Blaisdell Park, our night shift people are there quite a bit, just walking through, making sure that, people aren't setting the bleachers on fire and vandalizing the trash cans like that's occurred a couple times. So that's an ongoing effort right there too. So I hope that answered that.
Excellent. And so as a quick kind of question, just as a side note to the hotel operation. So was it like one of these things that I see on like cops where you guys set up a sting and you guys send in someone and like try to buy drugs? Like how did you get these handguns and how did you arrest these people?
So not really, because what they're doing is pretty much just watching what goes on. And
so they're just breaking the law while you watch them, and
right.
That's it.
So they're in plain cars, in plain clothes. So people might not know that they're police officers, but they could see a hand-to-hand drug exchange, go up, contact the people, and then they've got a loaded gun on them.
Wow.
Things like that. Some of the drugs we found had fentanyl in it also, which I think everybody knows is very dangerous. One of our officers a couple weeks ago was driving through one of the motels at about 2:30 in the morning. There's a person just laying in the parking lot.
Jeez.
Just laying there. So he goes up to check on him, realizes that he's having a medical emergency, and was able to revive him using Narcan, which we carry with us. So obviously he was having an overdose on an opiate, and the officer was able to revive him good enough so that he could get loaded onto the ambulance, go to the hospital. So that stuff's out there.
Wow. Okay. I know I've seen some of that, on some of the reality police shows and things like that, the Narcan stuff, it's like, it like brings people back from the dead. It's pretty amazing to watch that work. And I can only imagine how many lives have been saved by officers such as our police department, yourself, that carry that in their car. And now it's in schools. It's in so many places, which is, it's sad to think that it's in all those places, but at least it's good that we're able to administer something that could very, very easily save someone's life from that type of situation. It's pretty amazing what we're able to do. Here's a really good question from Julia. What is the current status of the SRO position? And if we don't have a specific SRO, how will CUSD be supported?
So the current status of the SRO is, one, we just couldn't staff it because we don't have enough people. So when I talked about all those staffing issues, we just didn't have people to put into it because we had no special assignments. So as we get more people hired and coming in, we're just recently, within the last week and a half, able to have the person assigned to that position actually work a schedule that's dedicated to the school district, which for those of you that don't know, the school district pays for half of that position's salary and benefits. So so that has just changed recently. The future status of that is being discussed right now. So we'll see what comes of that. And the person that we have in there now, when she was selected, it was a interview panel with school district folks and police department personnel. And when she was selected, she was covering a patrol shift, but also trying to help out the schools as much as she could. So it was sort of a hybrid type thing where she was trying to do the best she could. And now she's able to dedicate a little bit more time up there.
That's great. It's always difficult to try to do 2 jobs to max potential when you're really supposed to be doing 1 to the max potential. Right. It's hard to do 2 the best you can, but I know I went to Bonita High School and I graduated now, what feels like a long time ago, but we had an SRO there Officer Garwick. I still remember him. I never even talked to the guy because I never got in trouble. But I do remember Officer Garwick, and I remember him coming to save the day a few times when a couple of rowdy guys would start to get into a fight. He'd show up and break it up, and every once in a while there'd be a little pepper spray in the air. But Officer Garwick was really thought of as a he was really well liked amongst the student body. We all thought it was great to have a police officer on campus, and I'm hopeful to hear that the SRO position will return to our schools, because I think it gives kids a kind of a positive way to interact with law enforcement, and perhaps maybe inspire some future police officers themselves. Oh, okay. So one last comment, not a question, from Susan and Mike Brunasso. Not a question. As a resident of Claremont for 37 years, I simply want to share my wholehearted gratitude for the amazing work our awesome police department does. Thank you for your service and dedicated care for our community. Chief Fate, please share what happened at Euro Cafe as you caught the recent burglars breaking the window.
So I guess probably we could end with this story, maybe, because
sure,
it's almost like an action movie. But and firstly, thank you so much, Susan and Mike. That was very nice of you to say that. So because the name's out there, Euro Cafe up near Vaughn's had gotten burglarized several times, and one of the first times they had a significant sum of money that was taken. And so when that happens and that information gets out into criminal land, then people know that they can go there and get money. And so sometimes it takes several times of them getting nothing until they finally realize, okay, it's not worth breaking into this place anymore. The unfortunate part is sometimes it takes several times of not getting that, and that means they're breaking windows and destroying your office door and everything else that goes along with it. So most of the officers know what locations can have a history of maybe some false alarms, and which ones, when they hear the alarm, they know immediately that it's going to be good. And so this particular one, there just happened to be an officer right in the area, and he noticed this car parked over there, which is unusual in the middle of the night to have somebody parked over there by Euro Cafe. So as he started going over there, he realized that there was a burglary in progress. And so,
wow.
So he gets up to the front. They had smashed the one window to get inside. And as the officer approached, the person threw this fire extinguisher through the window and like jumped out like an action movie. So, so all this glass is going out. Guy jumps out, starts running. The officers chases him down and tackles him kind of right in front of Bonds, like that. And catches him, arrests him. So, you know, sometimes, like I mentioned before, with the skid mark cars, you know, sometimes luck is there.
Right.
We're in the right place at the right time, and it's a good outcome.
Well,
So,
I wish that there was like some security camera footage somewhere in that parking lot. I would love to see that. See this guy get taken down, tackled by Claremont. That'd be great. Wow. Well, excellent job. Well done. That is like an actual, and that's a good cap to our meeting, definitely. Aaron, I just want to say again, not only thank you for your attendance to this meeting. This has been an excellent meeting. I feel like this has been super beneficial to our membership, and this is going to get a lot of traction on YouTube for more community members to look at it. I really appreciate you spending so much time with us and giving us a good update. And kind of like Susan, I'm going to jump on the compliment bandwagon. I've lived in Claremont for about 8 years. I used to live in some apartments off of Bonita. It was a great environment. My wife and I loved living there. We started out there. It was great for us. Every once in a while, I would see something and I would say something. And sure enough, the Claremont PD was there faster than I could. It was almost like you guys showed up before I hung up the phone. It was the response time was really good. And there was one time where you guys were some of your officers worked with a gentleman who was very clearly experiencing some mental difficulties. And I was really afraid that he was going to walk onto the train tracks. And he was very clearly having a mental episode. And police got there very quickly. They de-escalated the situation. And the gentleman was, he wasn't arrested, but he was moved in the vehicle. So I would assume that he accepted some type of help or some type of resource. So again, just a big thank you to Claremont PD in general. And again, thank you for spending so much time with us. We really hope that the membership enjoyed this presentation. I know I did. I thought it was a great one. We had some great questions, some great dialogue amongst the community, and this has been a great one. So again, 1 month from tonight, third Thursday, let me pull up a calendar really quick. The next meeting topic is going to be Larkin Place, and we're going to have a member from Jamboree here to talk about that. We're also going to have Ron Bolding, the CEO of Pilgrim Place, which is a partner in the project, and they're going to be on to give us some information, and it will be a similar format. We'll have a brief presentation followed by some Q&A, and that will take place on Thursday, June 16th. So if you like to plan out, you can go ahead and put that in your calendar right now. And that brings our meeting to a conclusion. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this evening. Thank you again to Chief Fate. We appreciate your attendance. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their week, and we'll see you Saturday at Trash Pickup. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Chief. Great presentation.